Welcome to Let's Create Africa, the webinar. Today we talk about gender inclusivity with our dear, only Wanjiku Dorcas. We apologize for the technical hitches. I guess just like Kenya, M-Pesa, e-Citizen and the likes, we have been hacked. Or not, but it was a few technical issues that we couldn't get to. So ladies and gentlemen, please join us for today's session as we look forward to having this moment with you all. Welcome to Let's Create Africa, the webinar. My name is Wahiga Kemuturi. Karibuni sana. Thank you very much. My name is Wahiga K. Muturi. Welcome to Let's Create Africa, the webinar, where we talk about business innovation, governance, and the SDGs. And we have our lovely Dorcas Wanjiku. Hello, Dorcas. How are you?
Hi, Wahiga. Fine, thank you.
Thank you for joining us this evening, and thank you for allowing us to actually have this session with you. For those who don't know, Dorcas Wanjiku is the founder and CEO of Kipepeo Green Heritage, and the founder of USIU Africa, past president and co-founder of Amazing Grace Children's Home in Baruko, Nakuru. Dorcas, thank you for joining us. And before we continue, I'd like to give a few thanks to KYR Africa, that's Know Your Rights Africa, the Civic and Citizen Education Platform, the Future of Work, which is a jobs exploration platform, StartNev, which is an innovation ecosystem enabler, and Let's Create Africa, yours truly, Let's Create Africa, which is an entrepreneur support organization leveraging on PR, comms, media, and advocacy to create impact within the bottom million communities. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I look forward. Please use the chat box to just talk to us and let us know what you have for us. And without further ado, I would like us to have our guest of honor, Wanjiku. Wanjiku, how are you? I nearly said that in different languages. But thank you for joining us. Before we continue, you want to talk about gender inclusivity, a very heavy topic, I must admit, with so little time to talk about it. But for those who don't know Dorcas, or Wanjiku, as she prefers to be called, she's a name that actually resonates with warmth and benevolence. A remarkable individual whose life has been dedicated to uplifting others and spreading hope within her community. Born and raised in a small town in Nakuru. Nakuru people say whoop whoop. I hope you're there. She now a city. She was instilled with the values of compassion, empathy, and a strong sense of responsibility to contribute positively to society from an early age. So, Wanjiku, tell us what that is. What is that early age? What was your experience, and why does it matter in this conversation?
My story begins from when I was a child. I'm a firstborn. Then my mother happened to be the most benevolent person I've ever seen. This is the one person who would pick passers-by to spend a night at our place. We grew up with cousins and uncles and extended relatives to a point whereby we would call, like people we don't know, we go to call them uncles and aunties on a consistent extent. Like, I know people have come to ask 20 years later, like, how are we related to this person? And I'm told, no, we just picked him by the streets and fed him for 2 days and we held his hand. So that for me began my journey of always looking out for that other person I'd bring home to eat my mother's chapati or to enjoy that experience of being taken out. Yeah, so that started defining me as that person who will always be out looking to help another person. And that was way in nursery school, all through my life.
Good to know. And what led you on the path that you are at? You've talked about the inspiration from your mom, but what else
Yeah.
has led you to the path that you are on?
Then I have a passion for children, which is the specific group that I love to work with, then women and youth. Children, because I believe I was cultured from when I was a child. So the best thing I can do is to pick another child and culture them in a way that they will never forget, and so that they're able to build their legacy from a young age. So that is how we came to found Kipepeo. Kipepeo is about the journey of a butterfly from young age to adulthood. So I am here inspiring the next generation of leaders to inspire life continuously as we live on. Then I'm in the world of environment. The world of environment, I was inspired by the late Professor Wangari Maathai. She worked with women, and I believe that's the backstone of our economy, of our being, of our world. You cannot forget to hold the women's hand if you want the next generation. That is where I chose to choose to work with the women and the children.
Interesting. And you talk about Kipepeo Green Heritage as we get into it. Tell us about Kipepeo. Tell us more about it and what have been the very fundamental things that have made the organization come up.
Kipepeo is this organization that we formed, established in 2021, but we started way in 2020 during COVID. We started during the experience of the lockdown. So for us, it was a way of escaping lockdown. But in the process, we started by doing hikes. Then in the process, we asked ourselves, like, can we do the hikes a little bit differently? Then we started bringing in people for volunteer opportunities. We'd go like do tree planting in Gong, then come back, then next time plan like a hike at Longonot, do tree planting, then come back. So it's been that consistent journey. Then we got to a point where we chose to do accountability, and the accountability is what bore the fruits and what bore what we have now as Kipepeo. That's where the organization started, the accountability points. So fast forward to where we are, it's all about the journey of tree planting, empowering communities, mentorship, inspiring generations in the group.
Interesting. And you want to talk about gender inclusivity. First, break that down for us because everybody has a definition on what gender inclusivity means and how it matters. Aligning it also to diversity. What would you, in the simplest form, say is gender inclusivity?
Gender inclusivity, and sometimes we want to call it gender inclusiveness. It's where you account for everyone, you leave no one behind in growth, in development, in making policies. And by this, we mean picking the different angles that affect our ways of life. We pick angles in our gender, like in sex, in our workplaces, like providing equal opportunities, challenging stereotypes where we are told women cannot lead tree planting because of culture and stuff like that, in providing training, in supporting matters education, even in representation. Like we need to be able to have everybody on the table to give their opinion so that we are able to work in a way that supports and sustains everybody so that we are able to eat from the same platter as we all grow. It's not just about the patriarchal society that we've been brought up in. Of course, right now we have the narrative where women, you're getting a portion of it in leadership, but I need to ask that question where we have our women reps, but do they really represent women? What is representing women?
That is a touchy topic,
Yes, it is a very
Pol-
touchy topic, but we need to.
political to say the least.
It is. But in matters climate change, inclusivity comes to recognizing and addressing those issues that affect the different genders. That is our mothers, our brothers, our children, persons with disability, and of course, right now, the other gender. How do we bring everybody to come and act in mitigating matters climate change?
You've said the other gender. What do you mean by that?
LGBTQ society, that's the other gender. We have to acknowledge they are with us. Yes, we are living in those times where everybody has to be counted in.
Interesting. And not even getting so much into that, because the
Yeah.
question also would be, is it even a legal structure or a legal framework to have LGBTQ at the table in Kenya, for example? And how would that look like?
Yes, it is. Because number one, our president signed into the protocol that allows us to acknowledge them. Kenya becomes the most safest country in Africa for LGBTQ society. And at the end of the day, my take, they're human beings. It's a matter of choice. Just as you and I choose to be straight, somebody can choose to go left or up and down. Ours is to support them. The concern is, can we, whatever sect we choose to subscribe to, can we work together to mitigate climate change? Are we affected by drought? Do you lack water at your taps? Do you go to a place and in September we'll be fundraising for food because the country has no, we are facing drought, we are facing famine, our rivers are drying. Can we all act together? We cannot lock anyone outside. Whatever religion or sect or group you ascribe to, we bring you to the table.
Interesting. And how has this also applied to Kipepeo? How have you met this on the ground?
Interestingly, is when you go to like a college scenario, and the first group that responds to volunteering for tree planting event is LGBTQ team. Do I lock them out? No. When we go to the garden and we're all doing the holes and we are all trying to put the seedlings into the ground, and you're looking for who will take care of these seedlings 2 weeks later when you've left the location, you never can tell who is who. So I will not ask what sect you ascribe to. All I ask is, can you plant a tree? Can you help in river cleanup? If I call for a pads drive, can you contribute? If we invite you to a food drive, like now we are headed in March to Marsabit next month, will you come in? Will you support another soul? Can you lift a student who needs school fees just so that their life continues? Yeah, we'll work with everyone.
Interesting. You've talked about various things that your organization has worked on and is working on. Could you mention some of them? You've talked drives, you've talked pads, etc.
Yeah, our core business is tree planting with a special attention on fruit trees. That is, we establish fruit orchards in schools, that is very particularly in public schools, and then in community lands. Community lands is like, say you have a gated community and you have that small space where you can plant trees or you can set up a kitchen garden for everyone, or in your ushago, and there's that forest land that is public. We come in and do some tree planting together. We come and train for agroforestry. We bring in partners who will train on setting up kitchen gardens and vertical gardens. Yeah, so other than tree planting, there's the agroforestry angle that brings in all angles of farming, because the idea is to empower, to impact through food provision, and to bring change through value addition. Then we do pads drives, because that's a challenge we're finding on the ground, where you get the narrative of kids still are missing school because of lack of sanitary towels. Then we have food aid. We've gone to scenarios like Kajiado, we are headed to Marsabit. We've been to sections in Garissa and Mandera where, like, during floods, the goats are carried away. During drought, the famine kills the animals, the famine eats whatever little they have in their kitchen gardens. Then they don't have water, so drought hits them really differently. So we usually fundraise for food drives and we go donate in these communities. But for us, it's not just about donating, it's about donating and giving them something else to live with. So in our food drive, we bring in the mentorship angle. We want them to farm resilient foods. We want them to learn business etiquette, business techniques. So we bring in mentors from different angles, and whoever is interested loops in.
Interesting. How does climate change impact different, because you've talked about gender, how does it impact different genders and communities? And what are some of the specific challenges faced by women in the context of climate change?
Climate change affects both men and women, but at different levels and different impacts. Because in the African contexts, African women in most communities, whatever tribe you come from, whether you're Kikuyu, whether it's Masai or Turkana, whether it's the Luo, it's the same vulnerability, especially for the women. It's the women who are known to go collect firewood. It's the women who are in the farms doing agriculture. It's the women who are doing household chores, taking care of their children. It's the women who are responsible of going to fetch water. So it's the same narrative we're finding across the divide, but the fact remains we are all affected by drought, by the floods, by the extreme weather events. Right now, look at us in Nairobi, freezing. 1 minute we're freezing, 1 minute it's shining. It's affecting all of us. So we need to acknowledge, we need to be sensitive to the situations that are affecting each and different group as we go. But then look at it from also the point of, as much as women are affected, we have like large scale farming mostly is done by men, that we have to acknowledge. Women most do sustain, what do you call it? Not terrible, like subsistence farming, just around home. So, as much as big time agriculture is done by the men, the main agriculture that feeds our communities is done by women. That's why we say women are most affected, and the women, of course, it rolls down to their children and whoever else they're taking care about.
Wow. Can you share some success stories or examples of projects where gender inclusive approaches have made a positive impact on climate change adaptation and mitigation? Because the one of the worry of many, let's say, Africans is that they can't see the connect directly. So can you share some success stories on the same?
Yeah, I'll give you an experience. Last year we did a food drive to Amboseli. Amboseli, that's the section between Namanga and the section between Namanga and Loitoktok. There are a couple of manyatas in between where we found stories of human-wildlife conflict ongoing, and the ongoing conflict was because of the drought that was really severe. Animals were dying. I think that is the one time I saw the largest number of lions and giraffes dead in one location. Then we had the experience of staying in a manyatta just to experience the culture and to see the challenges. And you're following this lady who wakes up at 5 a.m. to go fetch water 20 kilometers away because that's where the borehole is. They're walking in the middle of, it's a bush, it's it's wildlife territory, and they're not scared, like they don't have a choice because they have to go fetch that one jerrycan of water, 20 liters. They roll it back home, and that 20 liters will serve the whole family for the whole day. In those manyatas, there's no showering. Food is cooked once a day because, I mean, who else is going to go fetch that water again? By the time she's coming back, she prepares the kids for school. Then she has to go take the goats for herding. Then she has to come back and prepare food for the kids by the time they come back for lunch. Then she goes back to the bush for hide. Then in the evening she comes and she's preparing supper. And there's nothing for supper at that point. So we chose to bring in partners, like we had Helping Hands International come in. They've been teaching them how to set up kitchen gardens. We've done tree planting, setting up orchards in a couple of schools down there. So in most of the schools that we've done the orchards, they're already harvesting fruit. Like we did grafted avocados and we did grafted mangoes. They're already harvesting fruit. What does that mean? It means there's a child who will not sleep hungry. There's a mother who will not sleep hungry. There's a senior citizen who will not sleep hungry because there's something to put on the table. Of course, the challenge remains. We have the monkeys and the whatever other animals. Elephants will be crashing fences to eat the avocados. But in the process, human beings are living. It's no longer the point where they would call every 2 minutes, Wanjiku, we need food. That has been that call I dread the most. But right now they're calling and saying, we have mboga, sukuma wiki bado zinakuwa, asante sana. Yes, that is an impact story. They are harvesting their own sukuma wiki. So all they're providing is unga ugali. That is our success story.
Thank you. What are some of the barriers or obstacles faced by women in the climate change sector, apart from what you've told us? And how can we address these challenges together as a community um, to foster greater gender diversity and inclusivity?
I think number one is GBV, gender-based violence, where you find females standing up to themselves. Like, of course, everybody's acknowledging all these challenges. Drought and famine is real. Climate change is real. We need to change our ways of life. We've been to communities where the men are not acknowledging this as a challenge. They're saying we can survive, we have survived. But then at the end of the day, kids are sleeping hungry. Families are sleeping hungry. Kids are being forced to, like we've seen scenarios of early marriages, just so that a girl can go to that family. Then in exchange, we are given food. Gender-based violence. We have access to. Right now, we are teaching people also how to use biogas, how to use solar, and you'll find that narrative being told. Tumekuwa tukiishi kwa giza. We've been living in darkness. Why are you bringing us this light? If you bring this light to our communities, then you want our women not to respect us, not to listen to us. You bring technology. And at that point, you're looking at this person, you're thinking, we're in the 21st century for crying out loud. How do you say you don't want development? You don't want to be empowered. You don't want your women to know they can live a better and easier life just by moving them to this other level. The challenge, knowledge, access to knowledge. Of course, we have local indigenous knowledge, but right now, out of my movements and travels and exposure and education, I know I can influence policy, I can influence the way you're living, I can advise you to do it this way because I've seen it work in a different scenario. But then you go down to the communities and they're telling you, like they're shunning you off because they're like, Mzungu came and did this to us, you are our people and you're selling us out. They have the most communities on the ground have the assumption if you come in and you're trying to bring change, it's because you've benefited and you want to use their story. You know, the right now the way Jeff Koinange, let me quote him, he keeps saying we need to tell the African story the African way. So most people, most communities on the ground, you can't take our photos, sell our stories, but you never bring the impact home, which honestly it's a reality we've seen. It's that thing they tell us and they show you on the ground. They gave us this, they took our photos, we see those photos online, but the benefits never came down to us. So can you bring change in the way we do our social responsibility? Can we bring change in the way we bring impact down there? It's not just about making money, it's about bringing an impact, it's about touching a life. It's about telling that woman down there, I'm not taking your photo to go and I'm not going to use your photo to make money if that money is not going to come down to you. Those are some of the disparities you find on the ground.
Interesting. How can governments, organizations, and it's good you've talked about CSR and ESG and the likes, how can governments, organizations, and individuals work together to promote gender diversity in climate change? Actually, yeah, in climate change policy especially, and the implementation, because that's also what needs to be done. There's a lot of conversation on climate change mitigation, uh, but there's no specific implementation or very solid form of implementation, and also policy making has been quite the mess.
Governments, individuals, organizations, private and inter NGOs. What I have to say is gender inequalities can limit women's access to education, to economic opportunities, to development, and it usually disrupts livelihoods. It usually disrupts our ways of life. It usually causes barriers. And the best way is for us to work together. It's for government to listen to us like ourselves who go out there to the ground and give a voice to that woman so that they can express themselves. Give a voice to so that they want to be heard. Right now, we have the African Climate Week coming up in September. But at that point, I ask how many youths on the ground have access to that information? How many youth even know that they can register? It's for free to attend that event at KICC. Then what we learn? What is there for us as people on the ground? Is it just about, okay, all these leaders? Nairobi, of course, Nairobi is the next big thing. We have that big target of 15 million trees. What is the narrative to the person on the ground? We have miseducation. Government needs to, the way we used to have departments sensitizing people on the ground about agriculture. We had extension officers doing this. The same way we're supposed to implement climate change narrative. We need officers on the ground. We need boots telling people this is real. If we change our ways, if we don't work together, we will not achieve this, and the impacts are going to be this dire. We need people to see reality as it is. If possible, let's even do like, those movies we used to do, the lorries were growing up, they would come to estates and they would show us those movies. Climate change story has to be told from the bottom up, not up coming down. That is where we are missing the points. We've been to Garissa where they are harvesting bananas equal to the bananas that are harvested in Kirinyaga. What does that tell us? A dry place can change. If Israel can supply the world with food, Kenya can feed itself and feed the world. We just need to look at it from a different angle and be ready to make our boots dirty and go down to the people. We don't have a choice. Time is running out. Climate change is real. We have to run.
Interesting. I like the people who have joined. We currently have 123 people online, and I like that because some people have come in. I see some greetings from Marvin. Thank you, Marvin. I also see a question from Francis Kalawa who asks, why do we need to push the conversation to sex when talking about climate? Just to correct Francis, she talked about gender, not sex, but I'll let her clarify on that.
Okay, Francis, the narrative is not pushing you to the gender angle of it. Let me demystify the sex. Women are the most affected. Reason being, men mostly will not be at home with children. Men will not go hiding. Men will not go to the shamba to farm skuma wiki. But at the end of the day, this woman has to feed her children, has to feed the community. And I will go to most communities, especially in the ASAL regions. Their culture has it that it's the women who take care of their families. It's the women who take care of their homesteads. So we have to stand up, we have to rise and support them in their ways of life. We can't wake up and say the Maasai woman is not affected, or the Somali woman in Garissa or in Mandera is not affected, or the Kikuyu woman in Sagana is not affected. It's real. Men go out and look for food. Let's be honest. Most of the time, by end of day, you'll pass by over there and buy motura and feed yourself. You'll have done lunch somewhere, but your wife at home will be there waiting for you to send 200 shillings so that she can cook supper. That's for the non-working woman. So how about the woman or the mother in the village? It's the same challenge. They have to, like right now, the honest story is it has not rained that much across the country. Somewhere like Nyandarua, the rains that fell destroyed crops in the farms. But you have goats, you have cows that have to be fed. What happens? Most men will come working in Nairobi, and it's the women who are left in our farms. That's a fact we need to acknowledge. Most of the times, the women are left in the farms, and the men leave. So we go out and support this woman so that she's able to take care of first her homestead, her family, then her community. It's not choosing, it's just the way our systems are.
You talked about SL. Are most of your projects within the SL regions? And also explain what that is. Not everybody knows what SL is.
Not really. We work across the divide, but you tend to realize most of us shy away from the SL regions. SL regions is the dry places of the country. And funny enough, Kenya has about 56% of our country is in the ASAL regions. That is, look at Kajiado, then the whole stretch of northeastern province, the larger part of eastern province, the northern part of Kenya, most of northern western part of Kenya is ASAL. Just a very small portion of Kenya is really green. Like we experience rains, unexpected seasons, food grows as required. Even somewhere like Narok, right now, at the section of Suswa, that is SL region, because of geothermal. So SL regions are just dry areas across the country that, okay, we have not really used the best we can in farming. We have not put a lot of effort, but it's places, if we put an effort, can provide food. Just like we say, Israel feeds its people and it's a desert and it feeds the world. Egypt feeds its people and it's a desert and it feeds the world. Can we use our dry regions to feed ourselves and then feed the world? Yes.
Thank you so much for that. It's a clarification that was needed. I think also just to clarify for most people, ASAL stands for the arid and semi-arid lands, which actually occupy over 80% of the country's landmass, surprisingly.
Yeah.
And it is the home to around 3% of the population, 70% of national livestock, and 90% of wildlife in Kenya, just speaking about Kenya alone. So it's actually an area that has to be looked upon. As Kipepeo and the founder and CEO of Kipepeo has been involved in various initiatives. Um, how do you ensure the gender perspectives are integrated into these projects and programs?
Our gender is that thing you cannot avoid. I always say, when we go for tree planting, most of the work is done by men. If I want tree planting to run exclusively and in an excellent way, we have men on the table, from the planning to the choosing of location to taking care of the trees we plant, because for us it's not just about planting, it's about growing the trees. We have to look at scenarios whereby, like I said, most of the time women will be in their homes taking care of the homesteads, but we need people who go to the community land to water the trees, to linear them, to add fertilizer for the fruit trees. In schools, the same scenario. So men and women all have to be accommodated. Then plus the other gender, that's the LGBTQ family, we have to bring in everybody. There's nothing like saying there's woman, there's man, there's female. It's only that we acknowledge a bit more that women are most affected, but we work with everyone in mitigating climate change.
Interesting. What advice would you give to young women and girls who are interested in pursuing careers or activism in the field of climate change?
I will say we need 15 billion trees to be planted. I cannot plant alone. The president will not do it on his own. The first lady will not do it on her own. We need all boots on the ground. There's a lot of opportunities in matters climate change, from agroforestry to farming to setting up tree nurseries and selling us seedlings, to taking care of those seedlings, to carbon credits and being the brokers in it, to empowerment, teaching the communities, teaching the world. We need data from Africa. Of course, we have our friend from Uganda, but we need all of us in this group. We need all of us to step in. We need all tribes to come to the table. We need you as a mother, you as a youth, me as a child. We need every hands-on that we can have to be able to bring back the world to. Of course, we will not achieve it 100%, but we need to be able to work together to achieve that dream that we have. A greener world, a place where you wake up. Of course, we all love. I always say we wake up and say we want to go to Runda. Why do we want to go to Runda? It's because of the environment. Then we can turn all environments into Rundas wherever we are. And that means me and you working on our small locations so that we are able to change the narrative. All of us can do this. Wake up, follow your dream. If your passion is, don't fear getting dirty. There's money in getting dirty. They always say, That is good. You remember that Omo advert? Yes, that is good. There's money in climate change. Come in.
I think one of the ladies, Stella Jane, who also says hello, and we also have somebody saying greetings from Aput, Jacqueline Aput, that is. Stella Jane is asking, I'm interested in creation of awareness, and I believe she means within the area of climate change and mitigation. How can that be done?
The first thing is I would ask if you're a uni student, we have clubs and associations that have been formed right now. So you can reach out and I'll connect you to some. If you're not, we have organizations like Rotary that are doing a lot in matters climate change. If you're not in Rotary, we are doing communities, we are doing churches, we are doing local communities. You can invite us in, we can have a conversation. And I wouldn't mind holding your hand and showing you how to go about it because, yeah, we need you. Wahiga will share my contacts then. We can engage.
No, please feel free. You can just type it in on the chat box. They can get your contact while at it.
Okay.
And then, how can we encourage more women leadership and representation in decision making and the decision making processes related to climate change adaptation and mitigation? Yes, I know.
That
I can hear in your voice already. I know the feeling.
okay. I will let me say this. It is a challenge to get your shoes into those places. But again, as women and to all the ladies who are listening to me right now, if they don't let you sit on the table, bring your stool to your own table and fit in. Let them listen to you. You will find there's a lot of bureaucracy in government. There's a lot of who do you know? What expertise do you have? When did you start doing tree planting? Look at her. Her hairstyle cannot let her. She's not the type to. Her fingernails. She has long fingernails. No, I have long fingernails and I always do tree planting. So you'll hear a lot of nonsense that will try to lock you out. But you need, if you believe you can bring change in whatever little way, if you think you can bring change in your MCA's meetings, if you think you can bring change at the global level, wake up and push for those positions. If you think you a connectivity to World Resources Institutes, that is with Wanjira Madai, a conversation with her would bring an impact or an idea that can bring change to Kenya. Wake up and push your way through it. It is possible. Most of these people are accessible. Most of these people are looking for young people to mentor. Wake up and push your way through the tables. Nobody's going to give you a free way. You have to get to the table to influence policy. My idea is tree planting, fruit trees for that particular purpose, fruit trees. Everybody else is doing tree planting, but I choose to do fruit trees. So choose your niche, choose what works for you, what you're happy about, then go all out. Do a lot of research. You don't just go to the table when you're empty at your lama, you're being mentored and you have no idea. No, you have to push yourself to gather information, go with facts, be able to give an opinion when called on, be able to say, we can do this instead of this, be able to say, if you give me this, I can run with it in this way. And somebody somewhere out of 100, one person will choose to run with it. It needs to be from your heart, and people will give you the space.
Okay,
Policy
somebody.
in Kenya,
Oh, sorry.
policy won't let you. Sorry, in
It's
Kenya,
okay.
it's not that easy. You have to fight for a position to be had. You'll get tired, you'll give up, you'll cry, you'll wake up one morning and say, I'm done with this, I'm back to being employed, or I'm back to, yeah, whatever other life you think you want to run to. But remember, if that's the path why God chose you to be on earth, you'll never feel satisfied until you do it right.
So, is that both for men and women, the challenges faced?
Yes, I tend to have the same conversations with the men who are in the same angles. Still, gender stereotyping will always be there. There will always be whose son are you? Where did you come from? Where did you go to school? It's the same narrative across the. So I would say it's a man's thing or it's a woman's thing. It's about what do you want to be known for? What do you want to be remembered for? where do you want your footprint to be when you look back 10 years from now? If you want
Great.
to be in climate change, please join us.
Great. Even as we come to wrapping this up with 6 minutes to go, a question from Lauren Omolo, who's asking, apart from tree planting, what else do you do to mitigate climate change effects?
Without tree planting, we also do education. We do indigenous education where we are campaigning for organic farming. So organic farming, it's all farming without fertilizers. Right now, we are telling people to harvest and keep their own seeds because in another 5, 10 years to come, we'll not be having all those organic seeds. If you can harvest terere managu seeds, if you can keep your avocado, original avocado seeds, because right now most of us are farming during using the crafted varieties. In another 5, 10 years, we will not have the original seed. Can you know, like in America, they have seed banks. In Kenya, yes, we have seed banks, but we know how Africa goes. At some point, you and I will not be able to buy the organic seeds. If you can do it right now, do it. I keep telling people you can come into the angle of carbon credits, buying and selling. You can broker. There's a lot of opportunities in that for those people who are doing marketing. So, can I share information? Yes. That is where my mentorship narrative comes in. Other than tree planting and climate change, I do community empowerment, I do mentorships, and I do public speaking.
I know there's actually been a critique around carbon offsetting.
Yeah,
uh,
a lot.
Starting with the question that is there a black person who's actually quite involved at the top when it comes to carbon offsetting? But since that's not the conversation today,
Yeah.
I'll let it for another day. But in lieu of that, looking into the future,
Uh-huh.
what changes or developments do you hope to see in the intersection of gender diversity and climate change?
I still believe, and I will say, like Professor Ongari would say, we are the hummingbirds of our generation. You are that bird that will water that one tree that will feed the next 5 years. A school, a community. It doesn't matter if you're male, if you're female, whatever sect you subscribe to. Gender inclusivity has to come to the table. You have to remember the mama in the village. You have to remember the old man in Turkana who sits under that tree. He needs that tree. So if I plant a tree today and tomorrow he sits under that shade, have I won? Yes, I am happy because that means I've empowered some community to do something positive for themselves first, then for their other users. You can plant a tree for herbs. Do you know? Okay, this is just a by the way. Kenya has some of the most expensive herbs across the world, and they only harvested in northern Kenya for export to US market only. I know you didn't know that, but those herbs, again, because of all the contracts and all the politics that comes with it, you and I cannot plant this in our farms or in somewhere in Kajiado. It's only specifically for sections in northern Kenya. Those herbs are used to do candles, to do perfumes. Can we use that to empower some generation? Men can come in, design perfumes. I mean, look at all the money that is in the perfume industry. I look at all not organization, business entities like from Spain that are packing jams and all these bites, dried fruits. Can we do our own version of dried fruits? Yes. So everybody will be employed in these industries. There's nothing like saying climate change or gender inclusivity is all about women. It's everyone will be included. Only that we say the mother, the shosho, has to be supported a bit more because they are on the ground.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Last but not least, and I think just picking up on some of the questions, Jacqueline Aput says it's upon an organization to put up structures and processes that encourage all decision makers to the table. Thank you for that, Jacqueline. We really appreciate the people who have joined us this evening. What are the next steps for climate change and mitigation opportunities? What are the next steps? What can you tell the young people? What steps can you tell them to take, like tomorrow?
Number one, push yourself to be on the table as a policymaker if you can, join activism if you can, step up and be an educator for all levels. Trust you, there's a lot of blotted information, whether it's in education, whether it's in academia, whether it's in research. We have a lot to do so that we bring all this information to the table. Remember, in the situation we're in as Africa, Africa is the next, is the continent that should be feeding the world next. Not currently, because we need to wake up and up our game. But if we do it right, we will feed the world and the rest of the world will be running here. So we all have a space to do something about it. Come in and mitigate climate change through the narrative of empowering people against GBV. Come in, inspire people through indigenous and social local knowledge sharing. Come in through joining societies and joining communities in policy development, in planning, in implementation. Counties are looking for people like this. Come in as a fundraiser. Do you have the power to convince or to pitch and bring change to your community? Come in, come in. Let's work together economically, socially, politically. Can you go to parliament and remember there's Wanjiku outside there who needs funding so that she can work with those people in the ASL regions? Yes, if you can go in and champion for us, by all means, there's opportunities in all different sectors. Let's step up and let's work together.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Today, this was Dorcas Wanjiku. From her formative years, Dorcas has exhibited a remarkable inclination toward helping others, and she's continued with this conversation also. She firmly believes in the power of education as a catalyst for change, and her organization, Kipepeo Green Heritage, has established numerous environmental children's clubs, and they support learning centers in remote areas, ensuring that education reaches even the most marginalized children. Under her guidance, these institutions have become centers of excellence, fostering a love for learning and providing students with opportunities they once thought were beyond their reach. Considering you're in education, are we expecting a kids' book soon?
Yes, yes,
Good.
yes, yes.
I rest my case.
We'll be,
I
yes,
rest my
we have
case.
some books in the line. They're coming.
Oh, great, great, great to hear. And so, ladies
Yeah.
and gentlemen, without further ado, this brings us to the end of our conversation today. This is Let's Create Africa, the webinar. Our guest today was Dorcas Wanjiku, and I've been your host, Waihiga K. Muturi. Thank you so much to the people who choose to be with us and the people who have supported us. That's Let's Create Africa, Know Your Rights Africa, The Future of Work, and Startinev. Without further ado, this brings us to the end of our session today. Again, thank you very much for joining us. It's been an honor and a pleasure. Have a good evening. God bless you all. Take care. Aha. And I forgot to tell everybody, please remember to subscribe, share, like, and subscribe. I was wondering why I'm not being thrown out, but please remember to share, like, and subscribe. Let's Create Africa on YouTube, Instagram, uh, Twitter, and any other platform, TikTok, and the likes. That's Let's Create Africa. Tafadhali would like to hear from you. Thank you so much. Again, good evening and God bless. Thank you.